There's power in the factory, power in the land, power in the hand of the worker. But it all amounts to nothing if to hand. There is power in a union. Now the lesson.
Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Manns and I'd like to welcome you to the April 4th Coalition Show. This is the September 30th, 2019 edition of the show. It is week 243 and the 239th show that we have done since the closing of the North Adams Regional Hospital. You may have noticed we were not on the air last week. It was an unexpected break for us, but very much welcomed as two of the panelists weren't going to be able to make it anyway. The April 4th Coalition's mission statement is we are for workers' rights and collective bargaining rights and are against tax breaks for the rich and corporations who ship our jobs overseas. We support all the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but as is the custom, we focused on Article 23 at the beginning of the show.
Number one, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and protection against unemployment.
Number two, everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work.
Number three, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself or herself and his or her family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection.
Number four, everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his or her interests.
Okay. Well, it's safe to say a lot happened over the last 2 weeks. And
Yeah, a little thing in our capital, huh?
A little thing in our capital
Another
happened.
Blip? Is
Another
it more
blip.
than a blip?
Who knows if it's more
I
than a
think
blip?
it's more than a blip.
I think Donald Trump would like it to be a blip. And he's certainly pulling out the old playbook to deal with it.
It's unfortunate the way he's talking.
Very.
know. We were talking before, I mean, what does it mean to be a citizen, you know, in a democracy?
I don't think he knows.
I can remember the one difference I read in a book by Eli Sagan, and it was about paranoia in democracy in ancient Athens and modern day America. And he talked about the Roman times. They had the dominating imperative: rule or be ruled. That you must. That's why we have dictators, because they're paranoid of certain people, and either they rule or they're fearful that the other people will rule and subjugate them. But the only difference is we developed a thing called democracy, and that has something different. It's where the citizens rule, they make the rules and elect the people that make the rules, but everyone within the democracy is subject to those laws. They have to follow those laws. And in a society, usually, according to this Eli Sagan, you never really get everybody to get to that point where they agree that they have to follow the rules like everybody else. But you need a critical mass of people that understand that the most important thing is the rule of law, that everyone is subject to the rule of law. They're not above the law. And
Well, you have hope and dreams and reality, but you also have to hope that your rule of law means laws that apply to everyone and protect the most vulnerable. That is, if you protect the most vulnerable, your democracy has a chance of becoming a true democracy, which we have never had, but it takes constant vigilance.
So, Rachel, if we've never had a democracy, what have we had?
A republic.
I think, yeah, republic.
A
That's
republic.
been
If we-
quoted by, even by the Speaker of the House when they
Yeah.
asked, when
I know,
Benjamin
it's a
Franklin
republic.
came out of the Constitutional Congress, they asked him, do we have a monarchy? He says, no, we have a republic if we can keep it. So it's a job of the citizens to maintain
And
that.
keep the republic.
And
It's
keep the
of the
republic.
people, by the people, and for the people, and it's a constant striving for that democracy. And
Yes.
it's like freedom, you constantly strive for it, but once you attain it, you cannot stop and say, well, now we have freedom. You have to keep fighting for it, keep standing up
To
for it,
preserve
keep
it.
speaking up for it, keep voting for it, keep participating, keep giving of yourself in any way that you can, and join with your community and now our worldwide community to keep trying to stop the oppression that's going on.
Make your
I
voice-
think these are very frightening times.
They are.
Make your voice heard.
Yes.
That's our main thing.
I know Dick would like to read, I think, the preamble of the
Right,
Constitution.
unless
Yeah,
you'd like
so-
to do it.
Oh, I can do it if you'd like.
It doesn't.
All right. The reason we're going to do the preamble is because it reminds you of what it's all about. The preamble is, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The emphasis being we the people, so it's the people, it's our right, it's also our job to do this, to work towards the more perfect, to establish the domestic tranquility and work for the more perfect union and everything else. And if we take our foot off the pedal, then we can't be surprised that it's drifted. If we ever say it's done, it's going to start drifting away to what we have now, which is a chaos and an oligarchy, I would say. Dick wants.
Yeah,
You've been going on about the oligarchies for a while.
oligarchy.
Oligarchy.
We need to define that so
Oligarchy.
our viewing and listening audience on WMNBLP 107.1.
.1, yes, I
Thanks
forgot
to Mike
that.
Putnam and founder.
Before we do that, why don't we watch a video by Robert Reich
And then,
and talks about
Sure.
the real political battle in America and see if he defines it.
All right.
And let's see. Okay, so we're going to start a video, and it's about the real political battle in America. Let's see if we can do this. No, wrong one. Right
One
there.
with the line, I would say.
Am I doing the wrong one?
Yes, you want to do the one with the line, right over there. This one.
Hearing that the Democratic Party has
How
moved
do I
left
get that off?
and that some Democratic candidates may be too far left. But in an era of unprecedented concentration of wealth and power at the top, I can't help wondering what it means to be left. A half-century ago, when America had a large and growing middle class, those on the left sought stronger social safety nets and more public investment in schools, roads, and research. Those on the right sought greater reliance on the free market. Yet as wealth and power have concentrated at the top, everyone else, whether on the old right or the old left, have become disempowered and less secure. Safety nets have unraveled. Public investments have waned, and the free market has been taken over by crony capitalism and corporate welfare cheats. Washington and state capitals are overwhelmed by money coming from the super rich, Wall Street, and big corporations. So why do we continue to hear and use the same old right and left labels? It's because the emerging oligarchy, those at the top who are accumulating ever more wealth and power over our political system, they feel safer if Americans are split along the old political battle lines. That way, Americans won't notice they're being shafted. In reality, the biggest divide in America today is not between right and left or government and the free market. It's oligarchy versus democracy. When oligarchs fill the coffers of political candidates, they neuter democracy. The oligarchs know politicians won't bite the hands that feed them. So long as they control the money, they can be confident there will be no meaningful response to stagnant pay, the climate crisis, military bloat, or the soaring costs of health insurance, pharmaceuticals, college, and housing. There'll be no tax increases on the wealthy. There'll be almost no antitrust enforcement to puncture the power of giant corporations. No meaningful regulation of Wall Street's addiction to gambling with other people's money. No end to corporate subsidies. CEO pay will continue to skyrocket. Wall Street hedge fund and private equity managers will continue to make off like bandits. So long as the oligarchy divides Americans, stokes racial resentments, describes human beings as illegal aliens, launches wars on crime and immigrants, fuels fears of communists and socialists, it doesn't have to worry that a majority will stop them from looting the nation. Divide and conquer allows the oligarchy free rein. It makes the rest of us puppets, fighting each other on a made-up stage. Trump is the puppet master. He's been at it for years, long before he ran for president. He knows how to pit native-born Americans against immigrants, the working class against the poor, whites against blacks and Latinos. He's well-versed in getting evangelicals and secularists steamed up about abortion, equal marriage rights, out-of-wedlock births, access to contraception, and transgender bathrooms. He knows how to stir up fears of people of color streaming across the border and stokes anger about black athletes who don't stand for the national anthem. He's a master at fueling anxieties about so-called communists and socialists and the left taking over America. He can make the white working class believe they've been losing good jobs and wages because of a cabal of Democrats, deep state bureaucrats, and Hillary Clinton. From the start, Trump's deal with the oligarchy has been simple. He'll stoke tribalism so most Americans won't see CEOs getting exorbitant pay while they're slicing the pay of average workers. Won't pay attention to Wall Street demanding short-term results over long-term jobs. And won't notice a boardroom culture that tolerates financial conflicts of interest, insider trading, and the outright bribery of public officials through unlimited campaign donations. The only way to overcome the oligarchy and Trump's divide and conquer strategy is for the rest of us to join together and win America back. That means creating a multiracial, multi-ethnic coalition of working class, poor, and middle-class Americans who will fight for democracy and oppose oligarchy. White, black, and Latino, union and non-union, evangelical and secular, immigrant and native-born, all focused on ending big money in politics, stopping corporate welfare and crony capitalism, busting up monopolies, and stopping voter suppression. This agenda is neither right nor left. It's the bedrock for everything America must do. What do you think is the real divide in America?
You did a good job.
Pretty
He did.
impressive. He
He
covered
did.
about
He
it,
did.
about just about everything that I believe in.
Yes, he did.
Gee, we ought to have.
And he
him
laid out the
as
roadmap. And he laid out the roadmap for success.
It is.
I don't think Robert's interested in being president.
But I
But
think the key
also-
is he doesn't think we need a messiah leader
No.
to
No.
change this. It's up to the citizens to do
Do
it,
it.
to educate themselves, like he's trying to educate us, that the fight isn't between left and right. It's not against black and white,
And you can
Hispanic,
watch those
immigrant.
labels, and that's the divide and conquer that's been going on probably since the history of
It's been going
human
on since the
beings,
dawn
yeah.
of time. That's,
Yeah, and
You've
but
got more than
labels,
I got.
you
I
can
want
just
it.
put those labels, and then you stick people in groups, and then you separate them. And the hard part is income inequality of people who are vulnerable and poverty-stricken, and those who are working 2 and 3 jobs. How do you bring them together to get them involved when they're just fighting to stay alive?
Exactly. Now, you
to find the
said
time.
earlier that, I don't know if it was on the air before, that we have to take care of the most vulnerable. Is that what?
Yes, yes.
When we take care of the most vulnerable, the rest it takes care of itself.
course it does.
Now, you have an article that was in the Eagle today about
Oh, yes,
the
and
people
vulnerable.
that are hungry in our community.
I mean, I just found this, I had no idea the numbers. This is in the Berkshire Eagle today. September 30th, hunger in the Berkshires. And Pete Gazzillo wrote this article, and he's the director of nutritional health at Berkshire Health Systems. Quote, at least one of every 10 households in Berkshire County, some 14,300 people, a population larger than North Adams, likely went to bed hungry last night. Mm-hmm. Those neighbors, nearly a third of them children, are food insecure, meaning they don't have reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. Even if they had enough to put on the table some days, more often than not, they don't. It's a disturbing reality triggered by a combination of economics and geography. Mm-hmm. So we can talk a little bit more about this, but I mean, I just find that appalling. And
it is.
You know, here in Berkshire County, but I just say this is the United States of America.
I meant, no, just
why
take
are
that
more
and
and
take
more
it all
children
over.
hungry? Why?
And we're the richest nation
In the
in
world.
the history of the world. In the history
of the world,
Yes.
we should be able to take care of
It's
ourselves,
mind-boggling.
And it's
plus
not-
help
yeah.
the world get better. And we're not,
And
If we
yet,
take care of
and
the
yet we're
young,
receding from all those responsibilities at
if we
this
take care
time.
of the young, I'll tell you something, it's gonna work out in the future.
yep.
You let the young go hungry,
The young,
They
yeah,
don't forget.
absolutely. Yep.
so therefore, you know, the greed's gotta stop somewhere. I mean, come on.
But
There's
greed
nothing-
doesn't know how
I
to
know,
stop.
That's
It's-
why I
it's an
say you
empty
don't just
void.
vote
It
at
can
the
never
booth.
be filled.
That's why I just say you don't vote at the booth. You have to vote with every dollar. If part of this is economics, you have to change the economic
Equation, yeah.
paradigm, and you have to change it in a way that says, we're not going to support you if you are destroying people, killing. I mean, this winds up killing people. You've got children that are hungry. They're going to die.
They're just going to die.
And if not, they're not going to be as healthy. And that's part of, you know, for me, it's climate catastrophe.
Well,
all
that's
these
going
people-
to swath everybody ultimately.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
care how
yeah.
rich you are.
No.
When a climate disaster hits, it hits everyone
The
equally.
problem here is that if you don't take care of the problem soon, it's gonna take care of itself,
You bet.
Oh, it will.
and it will.
And it will radically change the
Yep.
world when it does.
And the problem here,
Was that old butter thing, you don't mess with Mother Nature? What was that? You,
Don't mess with Mother Nature.
Yeah.
No, that was it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the young people understand what's happening, but the problem here is I don't think they have enough power right now to change the system. In a couple of years,
Intergenerationally, we have to support the young people, and those of us who can have to hand over as many things that we can that can help them we have learned in our lifetimes.
And I think that-
Well, you know, that's what Robert's talking about. It has to be a coalition. It doesn't matter. And he left out that one because that's another divide and conquer strategy, the young and the old. And I've been at a couple times at community meetings and where the young will say, that was your time, not ours. And how to, you know, sometimes they don't want to bridge the gap.
It's hard sometimes, all these.
It's very hard, and it's very hard to find the way to reach across the gap. I mean, because instantaneously the other side wants, you know,
Well, that's where you have to stop the divide and conquer right there. Right there. And
and
you
say, look,
start
it's
locally
all
saying-
the world
If you-
again.
But
It's
if
all our
people
world.
sit down,
Well, you have to
and
say a
talk.
lot of people in
We
our
get-
generation did cause this. We didn't cause this, but
well, you need
We didn't,
people
but
to
we
sit
didn't-
down and talk
we didn't
with
form
different
the fight.
ideas, but not only that, really talk to
You
each
did,
other.
I didn't.
You have to.
I'll own up to it, I didn't.
sure you did. You're doing it right here. This is
Oh, I
part
know.
of this
This
is
is
part
part
of
of
right
the
here.
fight.
This
I know,
April 4th
but-
Coalition program is part of it. And it's so important that we have a community TV that we
part
can
of the fight.
still speak up in. And it is very important what is going on at this table that we are giving to our community for thought and perhaps encouraging action. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we should be united, and we shouldn't even be divided because of someone's religion. There's a lot of people that, you know, they try to divide us. Well, if the Christians will be taken care of, and the rest,
Can go.
to let them go, because they're not true followers of God. And that's the worst
I
form
hate-
of idolatry, to
But I
just
think
try
that
to...
word.
if you have,
I hate that belief that God is not limited in any message. He can reach out
I don't
in any
even-
way.
You can't put God in a box,
There is no box.
you know.
Well, I use Great Holy Spirit because I take the
Yeah.
gender out of it.
Right.
But my feeling is you find the commonality in all religions, and from every religion I've come in contact with, the commonality is love. And do unto others and caring for others. I mean, how hard is that to understand?
Here's an example of a Hindu text, which is ancient, really ancient. It's one of the more ancient Hindu texts, and it's one of, it says, increase food, the earth can yield much more. And then I go down a few lines. It says, refuse not food to those who are hungry. When you feed the hungry, you serve the Lord, from whom is born every living creature. And then it says, who shares food with the hungry protects me. This is God speaking according to them. Who shares not with them is consumed by me. I am this world and I consume this world. They who understand this understand life. You know, this is the secret teaching. Feed
Don't you know?
people. Feed
Teaching.
people who
I
are
mean,
hungry.
we
And
just
that's
had the
common
story
to
of
all
Lazarus.
religions, I believe, you know?
And did you notice anytime you ever help somebody else, you know, something always comes back to you. And it's like, well, you do it because it needs to be done, but you know, think, well, it just bounces back to you. And you know, I think in the Bible, you know, it comes back 100-fold. I've seen it come back 1,000-fold.
I've heard it written, but I can't remember whose quote it was, but it said, God is never met in person, but in action.
Correct.
When you do something
Yes.
for someone else, you
Yes.
know. That's how, and to have that many hungry people in our community and across the country, and especially children, you know, to have people that are labeled illegal, you know, they're human beings.
How could you be
Yes.
illegal? And here we're talking about hungry children in the Berkshires, and we have mothers and babies being separated on the border because they're frightened in their own countries and they're trying to find a safe haven. I mean, that just makes me want to cry, really.
Yeah, and so we have
And my soul weeps.
the question was asked, what is an oligarch now? An oligarch is, to me, is part of the 0.1%, very rich. They're billionaires, and they
Or
use their money.
multi-billionaires, which is just
They have money, and they have that money to spend on the political system to ensure that they maintain that wealth. And the idea is that the oligarchs, you know, didn't create that wealth. They were aided, you know, by the whole country, and depending on what country, it could have been natural resources that they took from the whole country
And a
and they
system that
exploited.
allowed it.
yes, and you
So-
start right in this
So if
country
you
with
get to the
slavery.
fossil fuel industry,
Yeah.
you know, there are oligarchs within that fossil fuel
Sure.
industry, and that land belongs to everyone. It just, they get drilling rights or whatever.
But now it's about time to make them pay back to the people they took it from, which is us.
Yes.
There shouldn't be anybody in the United States of America who is going hungry today, and if there is, it's about time to look at the people who took our land, used it for their profits, and gave very little to the people. It's about time to start taking some of it back to take care of the problems we have. If they don't like it, it's too bad. It's ours to begin with. All we're doing now is asking for some of what is ours back.
Right. Through the taxation program, we could set, just like we have a minimum wage, through taxation, and it's something they did in the 1960s, and we were able to build the interstate highway system in the 50s and the 60s. I don't know how to adjust it for inflation, but at that time, if I'm correct, if you had an income, I'm not saying just wealth, if you just had an income of over $1 million, everything after that $1 million was taxed at 90%.
Yeah, I
And-
believe you're right about that.
But you
That's how
still have
Eisenhower did
to
it.
address the, what is it, 487 to 1, and what CEOs are making.
Right,
I mean, there
exactly.
has to be a whole paradigm shift in the systems that are allowing that. And that's really hard. I mean, it's really hard to break those, and of course,
Well-
it has to be more and more people say this is not acceptable.
There's some
Right.
countries that have done it. I think in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's changed, but they had a law that no one in a corporation in Japan could make more than 9 times the base salary of the lowest paid employee in the company.
So there's a solution right there, Rich, you're talking about.
Right.
That could become a law.
So that's when our auto industry was getting beat up by the Japanese auto industries and our CEOs were going to talk to them, they were looking at them like, why are you looking at me? I'm getting paid a fraction of what you're getting, and my companies are really doing a better job than yours. Maybe the problem's you, Maybe that exorbitant pay doesn't really solve the problems.
Yeah.
They had a way of focusing in the Japanese companies, and I think it was modeled in a lot of places in the country. Even in the post office, we set it up. It was called employee involvement, where employees met and tried to find solutions, and they met with management and they worked together. Even they had union representation, they had management representation, and they had worker representation, and they would meet. And the post office said at that time, this is not a program. We're going to institute this, and this is our corporate model. But, and I think like it happened all over the rest of the country, all of a sudden that disappeared. That was not the corporate model. They don't want workers having input on how things are done. They want a top-down dictatorship. So we have that problem in our political system, but what happened, it's an extension of our economic system. Just like we have crony capitalism, and we got citizens that aren't voting and participating, well, they come from a system where they work, they have no rights. They can be fired without just cause. They don't know what democracy is because they don't experience it in any part of their lives.
But I think also the apathy in a lot of our voting citizens is partly because they don't feel like their vote really matters.
Or there's no choice
Or there's
between
no
the
choice.
That's right.
Or there's
Or
no
there's no
difference,
choice.
or whatever. And it seems to take so
And we
long
have entrenched
to build
people
it.
in office.
We're
The
ignoring
best
their
benefits,
needs.
the best.
This society is not feeding their children.
Yep.
All these people are running for office. Their campaign contributions are higher than probably the budgets of some of these places that are feeding people.
Oh, absolutely.
definitely.
They'll spend,
Oh,
if
it
they
is
spend
appalling.
a tenth of what they spend on an office, on any campaign, anywhere,
It's
you
appalling
would,
to
you
me,
would
the-
solve your
The
hunger
millions
problem.
that are being put into campaigns, and you can't get on a stage, or you have to have a polling thing. I mean, I just don't find that democratic at all.
Well, we're winding down.
We are, and wow, the time went fast
We still
today.
have a minute,
We have
but
a minute to go.
maybe we can bring it all together. I don't know. Michael, do you have anything
It's
you
kind of
want?
hard because the people on the bottom have a hard time making their voices heard to the people who run the system. And sometimes they don't have to change the people on top. And the problem with that is it takes time.
Well, part of it is the people who are in the elected or responsible positions, they have to move to get to the people, to talk to the people who
Right.
have a
How-
hard time.
how often
They
do
should-
you have a
I should-
town
They
hall?
shouldn't have a hard time, but the person in the positions they've been elected to need to go to the people.
That's it.
Right, well, I believe they're mandated to have town halls with their citizenship, but the problem is that the area is so wide that they only pick one spot and say, there's the town hall, you come to me.
One example, the territory of Puerto Rico, they were able to get rid of a governor because the people were united and they went out into the
It
streets.
can be done.
And
And
they
they-
did power to the people.
Power to
All
the
the way.
people.
Yes.
Very good.
The workers' blood, mistakes of the bosses we must pay for. From the cities and the farmlands to trenches full of mud. War has always been the bosses' way, sir. The union forever defending our rights. Down with the black leg, all workers unite. With our brothers and our sisters from many far off lands, there is power in our union. Now I long for the morning that they realise brutality just laws cannot defeat us.